Welcome back. Here we go again, Musicom Academy. This is the third of probably 5 or 6 lessons that are intertwined. They go together with hot clocks and also categories. Because I don't really want to, in this course, I don't want to like ram it down your throat that you should do this. This is what you got to do to be right. Because again, there's 1,000 ways of doing things. And it's nice to see alternative ways of doing things so that you can add that into your arsenal of thinking. And then you might come up with 1,001, one more new thing somewhere that nobody else has ever done, which would be awesome. So let's get to it. What you're looking at here is a special chart that I made up specifically for these lessons. When I was actually programming, I would do this stuff by hand or in my head or just kind of trial and error, but I can't do that, obviously, with a course, certainly a video course. Something's got to be on the screen. So I made this up, and I'm really glad I did. And if you want a copy of it, just send me an email, pat@musicomacademy.com, and I'll send this out to you. It makes it so much easier to visualize what's going on, as I'll show you. And, whether you have music scheduling software or not, maybe you're aspiring to be a PD, and you don't have access to Music Master yet, they don't let you on the system, you can still do this, on your own at home and mess around with it as long as you have Excel. One caveat before we go forward, this has a macro in it. I had to write a macro to make these things change colors instantly as soon as I typed in, the words that you're about to see. And that appears to be a virus to Excel because it's something that's running in the background. So if you send me an email and ask for this, I'm going to send it to you. It'll be fine. It'll ask you enable the macro or not. Say yes, and it'll be fine. If you do not get it from me, if you get it from anybody else, I would not be enabling the macro because I don't know what's going to be put on it. But for me, I'm just going to send this to you, and there's not going to be any virus or any of that other stuff in it. Okay. So let's start out with what this is. This is a 13, as you can see down here, 13 songs per hour hot clock. It's just a starting point. As you start to build your radio station, you're going to have lots and lots of hot clocks. You're not going to just make one hot clock that runs 24 hours a day. You're going to have a hot clock for the morning, one for midday, one for afternoons, one for nights, one for the all-night show, different ones for weekends. Every one of those are going to have different clocks. Every one of those are going to have multiple clocks, really. So if you had a clock running in midday, Monday through Friday, you're not going to have one. You're going to have minimum 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I would have a lot, and I'll show you what you would be doing with that, but I want to just concentrate on one clock for the moment. Let's start here. You have now done your research for the market. You have an idea of what the radio station needs to be. But the first question, in no particular order, but I'm going to have it first because it's on the page and it's an easy one to start from. How many commercials are you running and where are they? Well, I put 2 stop sets in. So roughly at, going at a 15 and 45, 2 minutes early. So it's like kind of like 13 and 43. That's where they are. And we're making 13 songs per hour. And, if you wanted to make it differently just to kind of go along with this, maybe there are 4 minutes of commercials and 1 promo. 4 minutes of commercials and a 30-second promo and 30-second PSA or something, whatever you want to do. The next question after where the stop sets are, how many golds versus how many currents? This is an AC radio station we're building. How many current songs in a typical hour are going to be played? And then where are they? Let's just put down 2. So where are you going to put 2 currents? Well, you can put them anywhere you want. I mean, sometimes I would put 1 here and 1 there. Now, when I mean roughly in this area, I don't mean literally. Somewhere up in here and somewhere up on this side. And then maybe another hour, alternative hour, I'd have them up on this side and down after this. But let's just actually do this. So let me put one right here, which is going to be the 1, 2, 3rd song. Let's just type in current. Boom. See what I mean? It's a pretty cool macro that does this stuff. You don't usually see this in Excel. And the next one is going to be, let's just put it, I'm going to put it right here. Okay, I'm not going to put it exactly over there, and you'll see why in a second, but I'm going to put it right here. So 1, 2, 3 out of the break. So 1, 2, 3 right here. So there's number 2. So now we got that out of the way. So the next question would be, after you do the currents, how many gold do you have left to deal with? Clearly there's 11 left. After that comes, as a question, how many recurrents are you going to have if you're going to have recurrents at all? Some ACs don't have recurrents. You know, if I was doing an AC radio station in this day and age, depending on what my competition was doing, I might think real long and hard about not having recurrents. I would just take the songs out after I beat them to death as current songs, and then I would just give them a rest for 4, 5, 6 months, and then bring them back as Power Gold or whatever. Or you could do recurrents. So let's just do recurrents because that's sort of what everybody does now. I just wanted to point out that you don't need to do that. If you're going to put a recurrent in here, you're definitely not going to use up one of these current slots because you only have 2. You're going to put it somewhere in a gold slot. And it is sort of gold. It's just really super recent gold. So where would you put it? What do you think would be the logical place to put it? Now, to me, I'd say somewhere over in here just to balance this out. Wouldn't you think? They're not too many songs away from really hearing a current type song because a recurrent is a current type song. Most people don't even know the difference between a recurrent and a current song, a typical listener. You'd get a question like this, hey, what's that new song I just heard on your radio? It's really good. And you're thinking to yourself, wow, that song is 4 years old, and this person thinks it's a new song. That's sort of reality. So I would put it somewhere over in here. You're probably thinking maybe the same thing, just to balance the hour a little bit. Now you could put it, in this one, no problem. Or you could put it in this one, no problem. I'll give you my reasons for putting it here, but again, notice that this is only 1 hour because in an alternative hour, I'd put that recurrence somewhere else. One reason to put it here is it balances this hour. So let's just put this in. So this is the one song after the second commercial break. So let's put it in right here. Okay, that's one reason. The second reason is if this is a recurrent, by definition, this means that this has probably got played for 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe even 12 months as a current song in one of these other slots. You have beaten it into the ground. Your jocks are sick and tired of talking about it and trying to do anything creative about it. Don't make them do it again. Put it out of the stop set, okay, where they don't have to talk about it. Stop set's going to run. The song will come on. Everybody and their brother knows what it is and just move it on into the rest of the hour. So those are my 2 reasons to me why to put it here. One reason not to put it here would be that if this is a really great song, same thing if this was sort of a power gold, you'd think about this. When you go into the start of this stop set, or either stop set, if you have 100% of the audience going in, at the end you're going to have maybe, 60, 70% of it. You're going to lose people. A lot of people aren't going to hear this song. You got to weigh that. So that pretty much gets the currents out of the way. And so next up is gold. And the first thing that's going to come up out of that is power gold, super gold, that type of gold, cream of the crop gold. Super tested. These are no-brainers. Everybody and their brother, in theory, will love them. Power gold. Where are you going to put them and how many? So first off, how many power gold? Let's just make this easy and say it's an AC radio station and we're going to play 2 an hour. Again, you can make a really good case for doing 3 an hour, depending on how your other gold is. And maybe we'll actually do, if we have time, I'll actually do it with 3. I would say I would put one right here. I would want to start the hour with a power gold. And to balance it out a little bit, I don't know if I want to put it right after this current, although you could, because this is going to be a very current song. So in this, I would be leaning toward putting it here, but I'm just going to put it right there. I'll put it after the current. Now looking at this, you're going to be power gold, then you're going to have a regular gold, then you're going to have an A probably, an A, cream of the crop, current song, then another gold, stop set, gold. Probably a B here, maybe 1 hour this is a B and that's the A. The next hour maybe this is the B and that's the A. You keep flipping them back and forth. But after this current, you're now going to go to a power gold and then 2 gold. As I'm staring at this, I think I actually would change that. I would actually put a little space here. I think I'd put the power gold here now. And let's go do that. This looks kind of okay to me. Now here's where it starts to get tough, because what are you going to do with these other gold songs? So let's just start messing around, and this isn't right or wrong. It's just what I want to show you. So let's say this was a power gold, and more than likely your power gold is probably going to be from, I would say probably, at least I would make it that way, probably from the last 6 or 7 years. If it goes back farther than that, then I would have him in the categories of the way I cut up all the rest of the gold. And I'm going to make this really simple because a lot of stations cut them up this way. A lot of times I would not cut them up this way for various reasons. But let's just say your gold is 2010s, to now, 2010 to 2020, 2000 to 2010, 1990 to 2000, 1980 to 1990. They're 10-year increments, okay? Now, typically you might say these are the 80s and here's a 10-year increment, but inside that you might have like 80s 1 and 80s 2 as categories. 80s 1 are like the power versions of, the cream of the crop of the 80s, and then there's the rest of the 80s. Same thing with the 90s and the 2000s and the 2010s. You would be, doing the same thing. I'm not going to go into that now because it'll be extremely confusing to you. I think we'll get into that a bunch of lessons later on. But right now, you might want to say, all right, here's a power gold. And this is why it's so important when you're building hot clocks and your categories to know what's in them. Because at this point, I know when I hit this category that it's going to be out of, let's just say, the last 6 years. It's going to be a cream of the crop song out of the last 6 years. If that's what's being played here, and I'm going to follow it with a current song, what do I want to have here? Well, I'm probably going to want to have a 90s or an 80s song in here. I don't want another recent song. I want to drop back. 70s, 80s, or 90s. That's what I would want. Maybe even a 2000, but let's just say 90s. And now we got a current song. And then we're going to go into a break. So we've got 6 years back, 90s, 30 years back. Now we're current. How far we want to go back here? I'd say, let's just say 2000s. And now we do a commercial break and we're back at it again, knowing that this is going to be a B, probably a current song. That's going to be the A. This is going to be the B. What do we want here? Well, we did 2000s out of this one. This one I might, if we're going to go back that far, let's just assume that we are for the time being. Let's say we're going to do 1970. Out of the break, we got commercials, and then we had a 1970 song, and then we're going to have a B. So let's bring this back up into today. So let's make this 2010. All right, and now we got a current song, and now we have another gold. And what is this one? This one's a power gold back to the last 6 years. So I'd say this one, I would take it back out of the 90s or 80s. I'd go back into there. Let's just say, let's say 1980. I'll leave this for a second and jump around to there. So I'd make this one, this second one before the top of the hour. I'd make this in 19, it's something out of the 80s also. Now we have two left. And so what does this sound like here? We got something from 2010, relatively to an AC audience, relatively current, another definite current song. Then we drop back into the 80s. So now we're 40 years back, or 35, somewhere in there. Then we're in Power Gold. We brought it up to 6 years. So we've got 10 current 80s Power Gold. And this seems like it would beg to be the 2000s, somewhere in there, or the 1990s. Let's just make it 2000. So let's go back and take it around one more time, because we got one more left. Again, this could be anything, because you're going to make alternate clocks. But we started out with a Power Gold, so it's from within the last 6 years, and you know that for a fact. That's what's in there. Then we're moving to some song. It's going to be somewhere in the 90s. Again, if you were splitting the 90s up to the great 90s and the weaker 90s, you might look at this a little bit different as to what's after this. This might be a weak 90s because I'm playing a Power Gold, and then I'm going to play an A, okay? But just to keep it simple, so we've gone from the last 6 years to back into the 90s, back up to today. Now we're back 20 years into the 2000s. Boom, clear the palette, commercial break. Come out of the break, we're way back, 1970, 2010, we're 20 years back. Current, way back into the 80s, back to 6 years, dropping back a bit more into 2000. So from the last 6 years, we're dropping back maybe 10 years. Clear the palette again with commercials. Now we have a recurrent and then another 80s song. And then we got this Power Gold from here. So what should go? So basically we have current, 80s, 6 years. What should be in here? Something from the 2000s. But a lot of that would depend on what you know is in these categories, because maybe I'm going to put 2000 here, but maybe as you're building this is why it's so important to know what's in your categories. Maybe as you're building this, you may know that the 1990s category, I'll just make this up, it might have 100 songs in it. where this category only has 60 songs because maybe it was a kind of a crappy era for music that you're playing. So when you go into here, it's rotating faster and the songs aren't all that strong. Where in the 90s, or sorry, the 80s or 90s, you might go go back there and you go like, man, in the 70s, there's a lot of songs there to play. I might have 150 to 200 songs back in that category of varying degrees of strength, 80s 1 and 80s 2, that I can play a lot more. So you really need to know what's in your categories. Anyway, generally speaking, this is how you would make a hot clock, and that would be the thinking going into it. On the next lesson, I think what we'll do is maybe make an alternative to this clock. I'll say this just the way it is. We'll pick it up and make what would be an alternate clock. And I'll probably change these colors maybe a little bit too. I mean, I tried to make these being, this being offshoots of the same color. The 80s and the 90s and the 2000s are all basically shades of brown. This actually should look like a bright orange, but it doesn't, so it would stick out. So I'll probably change that to some other color like green or something. There we go. Now the power gold sticks out a little bit better. So the currents are the red, recurrents are this one, power golds are the green, and all the rest are varying degrees of gold. The darker it is, the more current it is, the lighter it is, the farther away it is. Like, here's 2010 era. This is the 1970 era. And so on and so forth, so you can get an idea of where we're going with this. So I'm going to stop right here and call it a day, and we'll pick this up on the next lesson. One more thing before we go, I want to show you this. This is WLTW 1 to 2 p.m. on the same day that I recorded this. After the lesson, I was kind of curious. Let me just go check to make sure if anything drastically changed. I did a monitor of LTW in New York in January, and they were for sure playing 2 currents an hour, although that was afternoon drive. This is midday. And for this particular hour, as you can see, everything is pretty much identical to what we just went through in the lesson, except that there's only 1 current. That's Go Crazy and Chris Brown. And 1 recurrent, obviously, which is what we had, 1 recurrent, but it's Ed Sheeran. Other than that, it's all gold of some degree. And it all averages out, if you average all the years, to 2001. So not a lot has changed there either. It's pretty much the same. So that's it for the lesson. We'll be going through number 4 in a series of lessons on categories and hot clocks, as much as I can tell you about them. And don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and also hit that bell, and you'll get some notifications, okay? So until the next time, see ya!